Some people say the Nike Book One reminds them of an Air Force One. Others say it reminds them of Nike SB's line. In my mind, the Nike Book One is kind of a recreation of the Nike Court Ballistic 2.3. But whatever it is certainly unique. So let's get into them. Now, the first thing that really took me aback about the Nike Book Ones was how comfortable they were when I first put them on, especially in the uppers. You know, they kind of look like more bare bone shoes, like something that would really need a lot of break-in. They don't. I mean, under the tongue, you get a ton of padding, and as we'll see in the breathability test, a lot of pores there. You actually got some strategic holes cut out there for airflow. But I think the coolest thing is around the heel counter, I open this up, and it's actually sculpted foam around there. So it is a little bit more of an undulating fit around your Achilles tendon and on both sides of it. Just gives you just a little bit more of that buttery soft feel, especially around the ankle collar where there is so much padding there. It really does feel like a hug around your rear foot. It is really nice. Now, with that, you do sacrifice some breathability. If you look at these on the breathability test, they did heat up 132.7 degrees, which is a little bit on that kind of mid to high range. I did notice also with the breathability mapping, the only place that air was really flowing out of was the tongue, but it was coming out of the tongue pretty good. And even the fog, which is, you know, a little bit thicker, right, than just the heat gun, that fog was escaping those pores pretty easily. Really nothing in the forefoot or on the sides, of course, because there is a lot of reinforced paneling around both of those. Now, the one thing I do like about these is the lace line is also double reinforced, which I really like. And then the last eyelet there has a little bit of plastic on it. It is going to give you a really nice lockdown. I did notice, though, that the lace line does take about 2 or 3 plays in them for a couple hours to break in. After about the second or third time I had them on, that's when the shoe really started to tie down nicely. That's when I really noticed the lockdown improving a lot more as well. Now, if you look at this on the upper durability test, 10-second tie grit sandpaper, the burr does get through that initial layer. You can start to see the darker material under there. Now, also remember, these do have stitching in the forefoot and the rubber doesn't go up too high. So if you are dragging and sliding on an outdoor court with these, they are going to start to look a little weird. However, in terms of the grip on an outdoor court, we'll get to that when we get to the outsole tread, and it's really pretty good. But when looking at the containment of these uppers, they definitely allow a little bit of movement in the uppers. They allow, your foot to kind of, overpower them a little bit at times. Especially someone like me with a little bit clunkier footwork, a little bit of a heavier dude coming down in them. For people with better footwork, people that are lighter framed players, it's not going to be as big of a deal. But just suffice to say, even though there is a lot of reinforcement in the uppers on these, the containment is definitely that of a more minimalist shoe. And getting into the midsole of the Book Ones, really efficient use of the midsole. Pretty chunky zoom air unit here in the heel. A decently long shank here in the midfoot. Reminds me of the PG6. And then these serrations here on the very bottom of the shoe. Now that is actually herringbone serrations in the bottom of the shoe. And that allows them to bend a little bit easier because they are full-length tread pattern. They're a lot more flat to the ground like a Nike SB or like a Nike Air Force One or a Court Ballistic shoe. These are just going to bend and conform to your foot a lot better because of those serrations over time. Now, they also might decrease the life of the midsole because it is Cushlon. I don't know how much it's going to do that, to be honest. I think the rest of the shoe will probably start to go before that does. But, every little point of failure is a point of failure. I have had people ask me that have seen the exploded views of these, and I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest. Now, if you look at this setup on the bounce height test, got 44 centimeters in the heel and then 36.5 in the forefoot. That's pretty typical for, I'd say, a chunky zoom and Cushlon setup. The bad part is the most balance is in the heel, and that's going to be more for shock absorption, more for, resiliency when coming down. So in terms of launch, remember, it is still a flat-soled shoe with a full-length tread pattern, so it's not going to be the most explosive thing out there, but it is one of the most nimble shoes out there for sure. And getting into the outsole tread, this is a kind of a confusing design. I mean, it is just basically a herringbone pattern, but the herringbone is pretty wide set, and you also get kind of a perimeter of rubber around the entire thing. Now, these grip unbelievable, even on very slick outdoor painted courts, even in cold weather. I mean, I really had zero issues with gripping these. Like I said, the containment went first before the grip did on those really slick painted courts. Now, if you look at these on the grip test ramp on hardwood, they start slipping at 35 degrees, which is quite a bit less than some other shoes we've seen recently. I did notice on hardwood, yeah, I did play with them on hardwood, but everyone's home on break, and I don't feel like having to ask a bunch of people if they're okay with me filming around them. But on a hardwood court, you can even see on mine here, yeah, they make a ton of screeching, but it is definitely more of a forgiving grip. Now, once they heat up a little bit, that grip does get a lot better. And I noticed on the grip ramp, I just artificially heated them up a little bit, and they got to about 40 degrees to where they slipped. But I would say these aren't going to be super tack shoes. They're going to be pretty forgiving and allow a lot of, once again, the word of the day, nimble footwork. They allow pretty easy transition step. Plus, they are a full-length tread pattern, so you're grabbing traction really from anywhere on the shoe. So, like I said, I wouldn't say they're super tacky, but they're definitely not ice skates either. They kind of lie right in the middle there of the traction profile of most shoes these days. Now, if you look at the speed ratio of these, they come in at a 2.7, which I think is pretty representative of them. Like I said, the first step launch in them isn't super elite like something like the Son of Flash is, right, or the Fission 8 is. But in terms of quick, nimble footwork, I know I just said nimble again, but in terms of like quick, easy footwork, allowing yourself to get up to high speed from low speed very quick, and just to be able to kind of almost like float through the air. I mean, I don't float through the air, but Devin Booker does. That kind of speed these have in spades, side-to-side speed they have in spades. And like I said, they're kind of bottom light enough for you to feel very resilient in them. I think a lot of the weight comes in the uppers and how much bunting and padding there is in this shoe. So bottom light, very easy speed in them for sure. Launch in them, like I said, they're still a pretty flat to the ground shoe. But looking at the outsole durability test, 10 seconds high grit sandpaper, I had to do this one twice, a little bit over 1 millimeter of damage. The durometer though comes in at a 17, which isn't the highest we've ever seen, but is on the higher end, but still the burr does get through it. And that's kind of ironic because the grip and profile of these is really good for an outdoor asphalt, cement, or concrete court. The width of the herringbone is really perfect for that kind of traction, especially, on really slick courts if you're trying to maintain balance on these. So I definitely think you can use these outdoors. I would say still probably a rubberized court is probably the best for these. And then maybe hardwood and outdoor courts are kind of tied. It's just these will last so much longer on an indoor court versus an outdoor court. But what's got to be my favorite part of the Book 1 is its fit. Now these things come in a little bit wide in the midfoot and a little bit short lengthwise, but for a narrow and medium foot, because there's so much padding, there is so much bunting, you just go true to size. A 2E for me, I would just go true to size because you can break in that bunting and padding on these. The profile of them is really nice and forgiving. Now, if you have a really wide midfoot, like a true really wide midfoot, these are going to start to cramp you a little bit, but that's a pretty specific type of person. I'd say a 4E, I'd probably be going up 1/2 size. If you go up 1 size, you might start to enter into the heel slip territory in these. In terms of somebody that has heel pain, Achilles tendonitis, things like that, I think they're pretty good, like I said, because the lockdown is so good. They don't allow any micro motion as long as you're getting these shoes 1-to-1. Now remember, if you have really long toes, right, then you probably are going to want to be going up that 1/2 size, right, especially if you're a 2E foot. But for someone that's more of a true lengthwise foot for your size, you're going to really get a great feeling of lockdown in that heel, or a lot of security, and that's what you really need for things like plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, things like that. In terms of ball of foot pain, things like that, I think, with an orthotic, a low profile orthotic, I think these do a lot better. If you start to put really bulky things in these, I think that's where you start to get the heel slippage issues, because these things are really meant for a 1-to-1 fit for them to really perform at their best. And speaking of performing at your best, no, this isn't an advertisement for supplements, but I did have a sponsor lined up for this video, but I decided to go with just bringing some attention to footdoctorzach.com, because as of right now, it's mainly just merch, as well as I have, the digital downloads, the basketball shoe guide, the tennis shoe guide that's on the website. That's just footdoctorzach.com. However, in 2024, there are going to be a lot of pretty interesting and unique products that are coming to that site. Namely, number one, I'll show you the back side of this product right here. You can kind of guess what it is. I'm sure you can figure it out. My buddy Noah and I from Xenon have been working on a really interesting and unique piece of footwear, and I think is really going to plug a gap right now in the footwear market, as well as a few other things that are coming down the line. So make sure you check out the link in the description there, and just make sure you kind of come back periodically, because there's going to be new and pretty interesting things coming to that website pretty soon. All right, let's get back to the shoes. Now, talking about the playability of the Book 1s, I think I touched on a lot of these points throughout the video, but I really don't think it can be overstated just how light of foot they feel, right? They do feel like more of kind of like an early 2000s tennis shoe. And if you knew any of those, like if you were paying attention to Roger Federer or Rafa Nadal back in the early 2000s, this feels pretty similar to what they had on foot. And those shoes were all about quick, nimble side-to-side movement. That's exactly what the Book 1 does. Like I said, is it a shoe for a bigger player? Maybe not, because you might be pushing through the shoe. But more of a slender, really shifty player, you're going to get some really interesting performance out of these and just some really interesting and comfortable feel. I kept thinking of that when I was playing them, that they just had that feel to them, that's just that really crisp, that really just customized feel, especially after you had them on for a little while. So I think they're perfect for somebody like Devin Booker and someone like Devin Booker's game. I think that he was probably pretty instrumental in the creation of these shoes because they fit somebody like him so well. Do they fit somebody like Aaron Gordon? No, probably not. But for what they are, they do a tremendous job. And I just kind of like playing them because I just liked reminiscing from back when, I had these on foot, back, however many years ago. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on these, especially because, like I said, they fit a certain type of player so well, and other players maybe not so much. So let me know in the comments down below. And right around the same time I had these on, I also was trying the new Adidas AE one, and we were having all sorts of debates on, let me see here, the foam structure and setup of the AE one. Is it Boost? Is it entire full-length Jet Boost? Is it Boost and Light Strike? I'm starting to think it was just my cut that made it look like Boost and Light Strike, but maybe it is Jet Boost. So if you want to see that review, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.